God bless Mossab Hassan Youssef, the son of a Hamas co-founder and leader. He bravely states what we've been saying for a while, which is that we should not use the word Palestinian. We should call them Arabs, because the Palestinian leaders, both past and present, would be happy to be part of a greater Islamic caliphate or empire or another Arab country. And for them, it's not about Palestinian self-determination. That concept was merely created to undermine and get rid of Israel. But watch his words, because it's not just us that's saying it anymore. Have a watch of this.
The suffering of the Arabians. Again, stop calling them Palestinians. They are not Palestinians. We are Arabs. We are the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. And Israel and the Jewish people have no problem
Palestinians call themselves
since the beginning of their state. Well, you gave them that name. You forced the international community and the rest of the world.
All right, well, let me rephrase the question. Should
the
people who live in Gaza and on the West Bank, should they be entitled to the same human rights as Israelis?
If they have equal responsibility as the decent citizens of the State of Israel, that includes Arabs, Jews, Christians, and all other citizens of the State of Israel, then yes, they have equal rights. But if they are not taking their responsibility, if they are using violence, sending suicide bombers, and killing babies, kidnapping a 1-year-old, how do you answer to the mother and to the mothers of the hostages and all those who got killed on October 7? It's very easy to just try to delegitimize Israel. This is what Abiy and her likes have been trying to do for so long. But they don't have the moral power to say what Hamas did, all the waves of suicide bombing attacks. October 7, that was a genocide. That was a genocide. So stop spreading the false narrative. Now, regarding to the Arabs who live there, they need a decent police force. They need a good economy. They need good education. And if they are able to integrate, then naturally could be a political entity based on their needs. But right now, when she say Palestine, who is? Islamic Jihad, Fatah, Marwan Barghouthi, Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas, Public Front. They are so conflicted. They don't have agenda. They don't have leadership. They don't have legitimacy. This is an anarchy that has been going on for about 70 years. And it's about time for it to stop. Now, to transform, to integrate the society, we must protect the children. And this is a priority number one before we talk about Palestinian state or whatever name you want to give it. That when we have a savage group, Islamists, by the name of Allah, hijacking and using children as human shields, their own children, after killing Jewish children, then this is a capital crime. We cannot blind our eyes. We have to deal with priorities. First, we remove this savage group out of power. If Abiy's intention were pro-peace, then this is our intention, that we should unify our efforts toward this main goal, first goal, priorities. Then after that, we can talk about the future. And this criminal you call Marwan Barghouthi in Israeli prison.
Wow, good for Mossab Youssef. Don't forget, he was born in the Palestinian territories. He grew up with a father who spoon-fed him a diet of hatred and telling him that we need to get rid of the Jewish state. And he boldly says the historical truth. The truth that Palestinian leaders said, both past leaders and present leaders, from its very inception. They would perfectly have to be part of southern Syria. They would consider themselves Arabs. They know that the land was conquered. But for them, it can't be taken into Jewish control, because that undermines their view of how history is meant to manifest, because the Islamists consider themselves to be the new chosen people, having superseded Judaism, and it's such an affront to their historical dominant plan for dominance by seeing a Jewish state there. And so they think it's just an evil that has to be gotten rid of. And so they weren't talking about Palestinian rights and statehood when the Jordanians and the Egyptians were controlling it between 48 to 67, controlling Gaza and the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. It's only in the 60s and 67, once Israel took control, that they came up with this identity of Palestinian. There never was a Palestinian state. It was always just part of various different empires. And part of the reason for that, from a Jewish spiritual perspective, is that the land cannot be taken, controlled and created into some kind of unique national state. It's always just part of different empires, but no unique nation states can make it their own homeland, because the land is only acquired through inheritance, and it is an eternal inheritance of the Jewish peoples. But this point about Palestinians, Mossab says it clearly, and we should say it clearly, that it's just a ploy. It's not a real identity. They're just Arabs. And so Israel has tried for a very long time to live alongside them, even indulge their idea of a two-state solution. And Mossab talks a bit about, trying that perhaps under a new authority. I'm afraid this is where I do disagree with him. I think that for as long as we feed this notion, this idea of some kind of Palestinian state, we're actually perpetuating the problem. Because it basically tells them, yes, you've got a point. Yeah, you've got a national claim to this land. And we tried it to make peace, but it's telling them this really is your land. And if you keep trying, you'll get it. That's what the disengagement from Gaza showed. It showed weakness. It showed that, yes, maybe we do feel a bit guilty. So you're just encouraging them by talking in these terms. Whereas if you say Arabs, then actually the great irony is that it's the other way around. They say that the Jews are the colonizers and the Arabs are the indigenous. No. The Jewish people are indigenous to this land. And the Arabs became the colonialists, the occupiers. Yes, from many, many hundred years ago. And because of that, we've said, fine, so let's split the land, or let's find a way to live peacefully among each other. The proof of which being that 20% of Israel's population are Arab, Israeli Arabs. We're not forced out. We're not displaced. But it seems to be that perpetuating this Palestinian notion, feeding into it, creates more radicalism, creates more terrorism. The perfect proof of that is that, look, Israeli Arabs are by and large, I don't know how they feel in their hearts, but by and large, fact on the matter is they are relatively peaceful. Relatively. Some of them, of course, aren't, but most of them are peaceful and cooperative with Israel. Whereas those in the Palestinian territories, it seems there's majority support for October 7th. That tells us something. I think that tells us that the way that Israel needs to approach things moving forward, for everyone's benefit, for the sake of peace, for the benefit of the Arabs as well, who are living under Palestinian control, because they're suffering as well. Even though I think they do have a level of complicity, by the way, and responsibility to this when it's rampant in their society, the kind of Jew hatred and support of terrorism. But back to my point, the solution that seems much more obvious to me and logical, based on what Mossab's saying and based on history, is that the whole land needs to be under Jewish Israeli control. That is what history determines as being right. That's what divine law determines as being right. That's what common sense tells us is the way to go. Now, what we do with these Arabs living in the various territories, that needs to be a discussion. Those who are in any way a terror threat do not have a right to be there. They should be, just as any other state would, deport them. Or find a way to deal with them, imprison them, or whatever you need to do for security. And if there's going to be a demographic concern in terms of Israel being a democracy, well, welcome to the Middle East. Arabs, Israeli Arabs, have certain benefits over Jewish Israelis, and that they don't have to serve in the army. That seems to be a bit undemocratic, doesn't it? So Israel should do whatever they need to do to protect their Jewishness, just as many other states in the Middle East do what they need to do and aren't far, far less democratic. But the point is that ultimately the Jewish people are entitled to live in their home in peace and security, and should be able to do whatever they need to do, in a moral way, by the way, but do whatever they need to do in order to ensure that security and that right. But it all starts off by looking at the truth. with clear, non-subjective eyes. I think, as many people have been saying in the comments on our videos, stop using these words Palestinian. And I think Mossab is saying here, he concurs. I concur. We need to think what we call them instead, just because people need to know who we're talking about. Maybe we can say the Gazans or the Arabs living in Judea and Samaria. But whatever it is, we need to tell the truth. The truth is not democratic. Sometimes it can be a minority of people who acknowledge the truth, who see the truth, and a majority that don't. So it's not always democratic. Doesn't always win by popular support. So be brave. Be brave like Mossab is brave. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.